care subsidies. But here's what you told me last month, Senator, about taking that kind of a deal. Take a look.
Offering a vote in the Senate without a commitment that it would pass, without a commitment that the House would even take it up, is an empty offer.
And yet, Senator, that's exactly what you voted for. So what changed in just 4 short weeks?
Well, Kristen, actually, I didn't vote for just that. We got a couple of other key wins for the American people that led me to switch my no vote to yes. So we got full year funding for the SNAP program that President Trump and the Republicans have been trying to gut, robust funding to protect 45 million Americans who rely on SNAP, and full year funding for some other important priorities like the Veterans Administration. And then when I joined the negotiation, really just 48 hours before it came to a head, I was able to negotiate with Republican colleagues in the White House key protections for federal employees. Everybody who's furloughed comes back with back pay. All the folks that President Trump fired since October 1 come back with back pay. And most importantly, a guarantee of no mass firings, no risks going forward. So those two items, together with the guarantee of a vote on health care, on a proposal that the Democrats put on the table. We didn't have any of that on October 1. We had that by last Sunday, and that's why I switched my no vote to yes.
Well, and Senator, of course, Mark Warner, who also represents Virginians, voted no. Why do you think he saw this fight so differently?
I don't want to put words in anybody else's mouth, but I mean, here it was an assessment of what Republicans would do. You know, today there's going to be a lot of good football games today, and every team goes in with the game plan to start. But if the game plan isn't producing what you want at halftime, the coach goes in and says, we're going to make some adjustments. 40 days in, the Republicans were saying, we know we need to talk about health care, but we will not engage on health care until government is reopened. Now, it's fair to test somebody's red lines, and we tested them over and over again in October, and they didn't budge from that. So, frankly, I viewed the situation last weekend as we had no path, none, to a health care fix until we reopened government. Now we have a path, not a guarantee, but we at least have a path, and Democrats need to do all we can to put the best proposal on the table within a month, and then force everyone, Democrats and Republicans, to declare whether they're going to stand on the side of the American public and reduce health care costs.
Well, Senator, as you know, you and the other Democrats who did vote to reopen the government are taking some heat from some of your Democratic colleagues, including Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Here's how she describes the lessons that she thinks Republicans learned from all of this.
My concern is that the lesson that they're learning is that Democrats are weak, and that next time we just need to hurt working people and working Americans more to get them to fold. And I don't want them to learn that lesson.
Senator, what do you say to that argument that Democrats projected weakness here?
So twofold. I have 320,000 federal employees in Virginia, and together with their families, that's probably 700,000 dependents. Getting them all back to work with 2 paychecks that they've missed restored, with protections against future firings. You know, some folks like AOC may think that's nothing. Virginians think it's an awful lot. And second, if the goal was to try to get health care front and center, she was not at the table with the Republicans in the Senate. And so maybe she thinks that the Republicans would have caved. Would it have been another week of SNAP recipients losing their SNAP benefits, another month of air traffic or air travelers enduring chaos and even danger, another 2 months of federal employees losing their paychecks? I was at the table with the Republican senators, and I knew if we wanted to get to the health care discussion, we had to open up government. And that was a vantage point I had that a lot of folks who were lobbying criticism didn't. I'm getting great feedback from Virginians, and those are the 8.5 million people that I represent.
And yet, Senator, you had said the goal was to get a vote, to hold a vote on extending those health care subsidies. That wasn't a part of the final deal. Polls showed that more people were actually blaming Americans in this battle. Do you believe that Democrats lost any leverage that you might have against Republicans moving forward for the next fight?
So, Kristen, what I was saying during the whole month of October is For me, Tim Kaine, I'm not speaking for anybody else, I didn't need all the I's dotted and T's crossed on health care, but what I needed was a moratorium on mischief so that the president couldn't continue to abuse federal employees and congressionally funded programs. So I actually achieved what I had put on the table, really beginning in October 1 with the federal protections that I gained. And I also moved us to a path forward on healthcare where there was none. Would I have liked to get the full healthcare issue fixed? Absolutely. And I'm very focused on working with all Democrats to put a good proposal on the table. But I fully believe that had we not reopened government, there was no path forward to do what we all want to do. And now there is that path forward, and we have to, do our very, very best to make it mean something.
So the Senate is expected to vote on extending health care subsidies, and yet House Speaker Mike Johnson has not committed to putting a bill on the floor. What, if any, assurances do you have from House Republicans that they will hold a vote on extending these Obamacare subsidies?
Kristen, so here's my experience based on 13 years in the Senate. If we do something in the Senate that gains bipartisan support, and that's what we need to do, it can't just be a Democratic messaging document. Many Republicans in the House and Senate have said, we know we need to fix this. The reconciliation bill is responsible for jacking up people's health care costs. And if we don't fix it, we're going to face an angry electorate next November. So if we come up with a good bipartisan proposal that is able to pass the House, you're right, the Speaker's given no guarantees, but with a number of Republican House members who've said, including from my own state, who've said, we've got to fix this, it would be political malpractice of the highest order for the House to not take up a bipartisan bill coming out of the Senate. And if they don't take it up, I'll give you a prediction. The November 2026 elections are going to look a whole lot worse for Republicans than the November 2025 elections did, when we just swept Virginia in a historic way and won big races in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Georgia, California, all over the country. Americans will see who's standing with them and who's standing them against them on affordability of health care. That will be clarifying, and I think the fact of that is the window that we have of being able to find a solution.
Well, Senator, looking to the future, if Democrats cannot get an agreement on Obamacare subsidies, do you rule out shutting down the government again in January?
Don't ask me to assume failure on the effort that we're undertaking. I think we can, we ought to plan for success and then adjust if we don't get it. As you point out, the continuing resolution goes to January 31. We're guaranteed a health care vote in December. So we'll have a chance to put our best foot forward, let the American public see. And Kristen, the public will see this debate on health care without it being drowned out by air traffic delays, SNAP recipients losing benefits, federal employees losing their paychecks for the third or fourth time. It would have been hard to grab everybody's attention on the healthcare issue if all of the other consequences of shutdown were drowning it out. Now the government is open, and now the American public will watch this healthcare debate, and we'll see which side are you on.
Okay, I don't hear you ruling it out, Senator, just for the record. I do want to move on, though, because we're almost out of time. I want to take a big picture look at the Democratic Party. More than a dozen House members are calling for Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer to step down, including my next guest, Congressman Ro Khanna. Senator, given that so many Democrats are calling for Leader Schumer to step aside, can he be an effective leader?
Yes, Chuck has been an effective leader. Remember, when Chuck was majority leader during the Biden administration, he produced a string of legislative wins with a bare majority, nearly unparalleled in recent history. Infrastructure, the American Rescue Plan, the Inflation Reduction Act, fixing the Electoral College, first gun safety bill in 25 years, an important veterans legislation. Being the minority leader is tough. In the Senate, we have some tools in minority, but not many. We don't control what's on the floor. And you know, if you're dealing with senators, and Kristen, you do, it's not exactly like senators just get in line and follow the leader. So I don't tell Ro Khanna or AOC or anybody else who you should pick as your House leader, because I got a full-time job being a senator. I don't need to freelance opinions about House leadership. They should focus on their own leadership and let senators do what we need to do to keep this country moving forward.
Senator, just very quickly, did Leader Schumer give you his blessing to end the shutdown?
No, he did not. He voted
Tacit
the
or
other way than
otherwise?
I did.
I understand that, but did he give you
But-
his tacit blessing?
Absolutely not. But Chuck and I had a really interesting argument about an unrelated topic a couple of years ago where I was going a different direction than he was on something. And he was really, really pushing me. And I said, Chuck, listen, my goal with you is always to inform you, but I don't need a permission slip from you because 8.5 million Virginians gave me that permission slip in November of 2024. He voted the other way. He would have preferred that I not voted the way that I did. But he knows that U.S. senators are going to do what's in the interest of their constituents. And my 320,000 federal workers and their families are a powerful, powerful part of who I represent. And when I could get important protections for them after a year being kicked around by Donald Trump, I said, I'm ready to sign on.
All right, Senator Tim Kaine, thank you so much for joining us, starting us off this morning. We really appreciate it.